Yeah. I'm not gonna lie, rather had gonna
Seymour is a legend of the game, the founder of the World Pickleball Foundation, and you have done something that I did not think was possible. You have gotten the UPA and the APP to agree on something.
Right.
They both gave you, when you announced the merger between WPF and IPF, they both posted their support for this merger. I never thought that this would happen. So, can you take us through basically like what is WPF, what is IPF, and what does this merger mean for pickleball and Olympic ramifications?
Yeah. So first off, thanks. It's great to be on the podcast. Really appreciate all the work that you've done promoting pickleball and everything that you do for pickleball, in addition to your play. I just want to get that out there. So the International Olympic Committee has certain rules and specifications, and one of the most important rules is that to be considered a member of the International Olympic Committee and to have any opportunity to participate in the Olympic Games, you need to have an international federation that represents your sport. For 2 years, going back to 2018, there was IPF and WPF. WPF was formed in 2018, 2019. IPF changed their name IFP initially, and then it changed their name to IPF back in, I think, 2022. And there's been, a lot of politics in pickleball, not much different than in the professional side of pickleball. Unfortunately, I think our sport gets more attention for the politics that's going on as opposed to all the benefits that the game provides. But there was a time where there were three international federations. Three international federations is a joke. The International Olympic Committee, I can tell you, loves pickleball. Checks all the boxes of what they're looking for any new sport to be accepted at the IOC. Our biggest problem has been us. And on the international side, it's because we've had three different federations. So this goes back 2 years. We've tried. WPF has reached out to IPF. Too many acronyms here, right?
Yeah.
In order to get this accomplished. It was stop and go and stop and go. And then I think last December, November timeframe, we made an announcement that this was really going to happen. We put together a transition team. There were two people from WPF and two people from IPF. They worked through and worked very hard every week, all the details in order to make the merger happen. And so, now the two longest standing international federations are one. We are following the Olympic Charter exactly as required. We've had a advisor by the name of Mike Jackie, who has been responsible for helping three other sports federations get accepted into the International Olympic Committee, and he's been fantastic. So, we are now beginning to put together a new board that will get elected in August per our bylaws. And, the model that we have is basically what the Olympic Charter proposes and expects for every sport, is that every country is represented internationally and each country gets an opportunity to vote. So one
Yeah.
country, one vote, good governance, all of those types of things. So that's kind of where
Yeah.
we're at. What's taking place right now, and I warned people of this 5 years ago, is that tennis in particular sees the amount of money that is coming into pickleball, sees the number of courts that they're losing to pickleball, sees many of the legends of their game moving over to pickleball. They're not happy about it.
Right.
What they are happy about and what they'd love is to get a piece of all that money that's coming into pickleball. So there has been discussions I first heard of these discussions 5 years ago, that pickleball, if they can't remove pickleball, and they thought initially it was just a fad. Obviously, that's not the case, that they would just take it over. And there is a September, the ITF, the International Tennis Federation, is voting on whether or not they should take over pickleball. Now, taking over pickleball, you could say you want to do it, but you need to have another international federation that is willing to do so. Now, my fear, I don't have any facts to share, but my fear is that GPF is considering, or maybe is already planning, to join and come under the umbrella of ITF. I believe.
Interesting. So basically, for me to understand,
Mhm.
the IOC more or less acknowledges pickleball as
Up
a
and coming
sport that
sport.
they want to include in the Olympics, but they don't think that it can self-govern at this point. So they would
Correct.
turn to ITA, which administrates tennis for the IOC, correct? In
ITF
order to
does.
ITF, I'm sorry,
Yep.
ITF to administrate that, and they would likely partner or potentially partner with GPF.
So we need to separate two things that are very important here, Zane. ITF would like to be able to bring pickleball under their umbrella.
Right.
That in and of itself does not mean that the IOC is going to accept it.
Sure.
Okay, that's a whole different story. And you know a little bit about my background in gymnastics. I've worked with 5 Olympians, 2 Olympic champions. I've got a number of colleagues that are at the IOC, and I have been told that the IOC does not like to bring one sport under another. They've done
Yeah.
it in a couple of instances, but it has never worked out well. They see pickleball as being one of the premier sports, and in order for that to happen, all of their experience has demonstrated that it needs to be run by pickleball people, not have a potential conflict of interest, which obviously tennis would have.
Right. Like going back to the beginning of this call on the merger, how do
Yeah,
you think that this impacts the timeline of pickleball being in the Olympics? It's a great question. Like I see it spoken about all over the place on social media.
yeah,
I'm gonna have to guess that 99.9% of the people who are commenting on social media about this don't know what they're
no,
talking about.
correct.
So let's ask somebody who does, whose main mission has been to get pickleball into the Olympics for a long time. How does this impact the timeline? And if you were a betting man that had to put, say, $50,000 on which year pickleball is going to be in the Olympics, what year would you bet on?
Well, that's a really difficult question to answer,
I
Zane.
don't. Well, I'm not going to ask you easy questions,
Of
Rick.
course, of course. That's why you're the number one podcast, right? So I would say that, well, I'm going to answer it in a couple ways. First off, there is still a possibility that we could get into 2028. People say
Okay.
it's impossible. I'm just telling you, and I've heard this directly from the IOC. If we want you in, you're in, period.
Mhm.
And there have been examples of other sports that have gotten in with less than 4 years,
Wow. Okay.
even though the rules say 7 years. So
Mhm.
I can tell you that that is still a possibility, especially because it's in LA and because our
Yeah.
sport was invented here.
What percent chance are you putting that at? Less than 25? Like
Yes,
what? Yeah. Okay.
I
So
would
a
say
small
less.
chance. A
Yeah,
small chance.
I would say 10%. Things would
Okay.
have to fall together very, very quickly. The possibilities of that happening would increase dramatically if GPF would come back and join, they've been invited to do on several occasions.
Mhm.
So that really is the one stumbling block that potentially still exists.
Gotcha.
I think 2032 is highly likely. I would say it's 50%.
2032 is Brisbane, correct?
Correct.
Okay.
And then 2036, I would say, is a much more likely time frame, just
Okay.
based on what's been happening with other sports and with the popularity of our sport. But like I said, I would not be a bit surprised if we got into 2028 or 2032.
Okay. Gotcha. All right. So is 2032 where you're putting your chips if you've got to go all in on 28, 32, or 36?
I guess it just depends on the politics within our sport, Zane.
Yeah.
I can't call that, right? I mean, I've been
Yeah.
battling that for a very, very long time.
Yeah, I gotcha. Okay, sure. So it does seem to me like, and I'm curious how this is going to work out. It seems like to me that we're still, let's say GPF merges. Let's say you've got every single country in the world on board with things. It still seems to me, and again, as a non-expert in Olympics,
Right.
it seems like we've got a few things that we've got to get sorted out: paddle testing, drug testing, and other forms of cheating, line calls.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, I agree with you 100% on that. But those things can be corrected very quickly. Okay. The drug testing, at WPF, we already put together a handbook for WADA. All we've got to do is become a signatory that basically is, putting in your application and paying $20,000 or $25,000. I don't remember what it is. The technology exists to get the line calling done correctly. We just got to get the money invested into doing it right. That can be addressed quickly. I really do believe if you take a look, I got my hands on some statistics just last week, and as much as I travel, and I spent
You're
a quite a bit
everywhere.
of time, everywhere. Here's the statistics that came out: 178 million people are playing pickleball in Asia alone, and they were defined as frequent players, not playing once a year or twice a year.
Wait, you're gonna have to
178.
send me where that came from. That's a crazy number, Riff.
It is a
That's an
crazy
insane
number.
number.
Yeah. So China alone has 60 million. India leads by a significant margin, and the fastest growing one per population is Vietnam, and Malaysia is right behind them. So, I mean, if you take a look at the explosion that has taken place in just a short period of time in Asia, I could tell you, there's some major big corporations that are putting in money and will continue to put in money into pickleball. Broadcasting rights are going to go through the roof throughout all of Asia. That's where the IOC makes their money. It comes from those broadcasting rights and sponsorships by major international companies. And there's been a huge shift. If you go back 20, 30 years, most of those sponsors all came from American companies. And so US had quite a bit of power within the IOC. In fact, they were really considered bullies by the IOC. That does not exist today. Today there's certainly, sponsors that are from the United States, but there's a significant coming out of all these other countries internationally.
Interesting. Okay. Well, yeah, all that's good to know.
Yeah.